Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to do another Turner Syndrome video, and I actually wanted to talk about an aspect of it that is being highlighted by the Turner Syndrome Society for this year's Turner Syndrome Awareness Month. Somebody reminded me in the comments, and I thought that should be its whole own video. So the theme of this year's Turner Syndrome Awareness Month was A Healthy Heart Matters. And that is extremely important to Turner Syndrome because there are very severe and very scary heart complications that is a major concern for a woman with Turner Syndrome. There are baby girls born with Turner Syndrome that do not make it because of the heart complications that can occur. Looking at going through IVF a few months ago, I had to have a cardiac MRI because of those heart problem possibilities. I've never had any major problems at all. My heart's always been great and totally fine, but because of the stress pregnancy puts on your body already, and then you add in I have a risk of forming a heart problem, they wanted to make sure, and I am very happy, and I was not stoked about doing a cardiac MRI, but I knew it was worth it, and I was very happy that my doctors were both being very diligent about that and wanting to make sure they were not risking my health and safety just to take me through pregnancy. So it has meant for me that I have had 2 cardiac MRIs by the age of 26 and more echoes on my heart than I can even count. At least once a year, I've had an echo on my heart. They do that to make sure it's not developing, even if there's never been any history of it or there's never been any signs of it. It can develop at any point in time, totally on its own, and it is not something you want to be surprised with. What the biggest heart concern with Turner Syndrome is called aortic dissection, which I know I've talked about before, is when the aortic valve starts separating and expanding. That is extremely dangerous. That is something that every doctor I've spoke to has been very concerned with, and why I've had so much heart monitoring. And it hasn't mattered that I've never had a history of it. Even going into IVF, they said, yeah, that's awesome that you've never had any problems or any sign of it whatsoever, but this can bring it on either way, so we want to make sure of where you're starting at, because that's a baseline for where it could go and what your heart is doing right now, and if it's still healthily functioning outside of that, so that any stress it'll go under for pregnancy is not going to exacerbate an already existing problem, and that gives us a better starting point to hopefully have no complications during pregnancy for you. So I have only had this major concern for it come up with pregnancy because they've watched me my whole life and I've never had any problems whatsoever. I've never had any issues come up with my heart at all, but they don't ever want to let it happen, so they monitor me really closely. And that is the same for a lot of the conditions that happen with Turner Syndrome. They continue to watch them because of the likelihood of it happening and because of the necessity for catching it early. This means during pregnancy, with a mom that's pregnant with a Turner Syndrome baby, she's getting a lot of ultrasounds to make sure of how the baby looks. When my mom was pregnant with me, there was that whole fluid concern where they really didn't expect me to live. They didn't expect me to make it at all. And even if I did, they didn't think I would be able to do anything on my own or have any quality of life whatsoever. Obviously, that didn't end up happening. Whole other story. But they took the time to check my heart, my lungs, and they found every organ in my body to make sure, because you never know. And with Turner Syndrome, they don't have enough information to guarantee how it'll flesh out and how it'll happen in every girl. So the heart problems are going to always be something I need to watch for. And if you have Turner Syndrome or your daughter has Turner Syndrome, it will be something she has to monitor her whole life, because there is always going to be a risk that it could just pop up out of nowhere. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned since starting talking about Turner Syndrome more on my channel is the early intervention is so incredibly important. The staying on top of tests and monitoring it is so incredibly important and so valuable to a doctor's care of a Turner syndrome woman. The thing I've really taken out of the focus on a healthy heart and the theme being a healthy heart matters is the necessity for early monitoring. The necessity for finding those things early, for being able to do what you can as early as possible, and for not ignoring it as a possibility, even if you don't have a history of it. I was born with a totally healthy heart, and I have had no heart problems whatsoever my entire life, and I am extremely blessed and extremely grateful for that. That doesn't mean I don't need to keep watching it and make sure it stays that way. And a lot of the IVF process for me really showed the ways I had taken my health for granted. I had assumed I was okay because I had always been okay, and a lot of the doctor's appointments where they were concerned or worried or wanting to make sure, I had kind of started brushing off as I got older because they were telling me I'd had these likelihoods my whole life and nothing had ever popped up. I never had any problems. I was even above average in most things besides the normal height charts, but you know, it's a different story. So there was something that shifted in my brain, and the heart problems definitely was one of them. I had never felt the reality of it being a possibility in my life before. I had never felt that weight of, no, this is a major health concern for you. And no, you've never had problems, it's never popped up at all, it's always been wonderful, but that doesn't mean it always will be wonderful. There's so much value in making sure and making yourself knowledgeable about what your body's doing and where you're at with those issues that are concerns. So with that being said, I want to encourage everybody watching to get that monitoring. If you haven't in a while, if you are reluctant to, or you really don't think it's necessary because you've never had problems, get it anyways. Have that on paper that you know what's going on and you know everything's okay. Even just the peace of mind is so valuable. I cannot even explain how much better I felt once I had gone through that testing and I heard it was okay. Thankfully, because I'm really bad at waiting, I got the answer that night because I would have been a wreck for much longer than that if I had not gotten it for a day or two, because I really wanted to know what it said, because they really stressed that this was a major worry and that made me worry. So the testing really helped, and I think just having that knowledge of, no, I'm up on my testing, I'm up on my monitoring, they've looked at it closely recently and it was good. So unless anything strange starts happening, there's no cause for concern because they've seen my heart, they've seen what it's doing, and they know it's okay. And this really pushed for me that it might not always stay that way just because it is okay right now. There are a lot of things that can change as we get older. And what I've learned more and more is those health concerns that are major, and the heart problem is like the biggest. It is one of the very biggest concerns with all of the health complications that come with Turner syndrome. That as my body changes as I get older, that is something I need to pay attention to more, because changes can mean more stuff starts arising that I have to deal with. And I want to make sure I know it and make sure I'm on top of it so I know and I can handle it the best way possible. So I thought, after I saw that comment, I couldn't even believe I had not thought about doing a video all dedicated to that for this awareness month, because it's the theme of this awareness month. A healthy heart matters, and it really does. Until that's in jeopardy, you have no idea how valuable and how amazing what your heart does and how important what it does is. So I would encourage everybody to make sure they're up on their monitoring for their heart stuff. If you haven't had an echo in a while, get an echo. If your doctors are saying, I want to make sure of something, let's do a cardiac MRI. I understand it is not fun. I get claustrophobic and that machine is so loud, but it made sure I was okay. And it was such an amazing moment getting that result email from my doctor saying, your MRI looked amazing. It was awesome. We're very happy with that. That made me feel so good, and I was so glad I did it and got it done. So I would encourage everybody to. And I thought that would be a perfect way to close out the awareness month. So I hope you liked this video. I hope it helped you in some way. I hope it was informative and encouraging. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with everybody. If you are not already subscribed, click the screen and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!